Travel and Things in association with Sun Destinations, iconic destinations with amazing experiences, present In Conversation with. I am your host, David Batshoffen, and today joining me from the Umlani Bushcamp in Timbavati is their camp manager. That's Micaela. Micaela, good morning. Welcome to you.
Good morning, David. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's only a pleasure. I have to ask you before we go anywhere, has it rained since
Yes.
my visit?
Yes, it has. A beautiful, beautiful, life-giving, nice long soak of
Mm.
about 50 to 60 millimeters since you
Oh,
left.
wow. I can imagine that the green is already starting to show.
Yeah, the green has been kind of waiting under the surface, wishing to burst out, and it just has burst out. So some things popped up overnight, like
Yeah.
instantaneously, and other things were just slightly budding, just trying its best to convince itself that it was safe to come out. And now it's in full green glory.
Oh, that's wonderful. Tell us a bit, firstly, what does the word Umlani mean?
Umlani means place of rest. So it's actually spelt incorrectly for ease of tourism and international usage.
Right.
It's actually supposed to be Umhlani with a H, Umhlani, which is
Okay.
actually the place of rest, a resting place,
Mhm.
specifically after walking, actually.
Oh, okay.
And when we started in 1990, Umhlani was exclusively walking trails. It was kind of like a trails camp.
Mhm.
And then, we were super, super rustic. It was still the time of apartheid, so we didn't have any internationals. And we had lots of groups, yeah, birding groups and specialist groups, photography groups. What else we had? Anyway, we had lots of group things,
Mhm.
rangers and training, so on and so on. And we mostly did walks twice a day. And then, yeah, basically, as time evolved and the market opened up for internationals, we became Umlani Bushcamp, and we are running pretty much par for the course as most programs do in all lodges, with the 2 drives a day, but we do still do a lot of walking if people want to.
Great stuff. And I mean that area is wonderful to walk. It really and truly is. There's nothing I think people don't give bushwalks enough credit. You know, they'll do a drive in the morning, they'll come back, have breakfast, and then most of them, when they ask, would you like to go on a walk? They go, no, we'll go and lie by the pool, or we'll go and sit on the deck and see what comes up. But those walks
Yeah.
put a whole different spin on your bush experience.
They really do. It focuses on an entirely different part of the bush journey.
Mm.
We're not looking for big game. It's the small stuff that counts. Lots more about fauna and flora. Lots more about well, I mean, certainly get your blood pumping. Not only does the heat beat down on you while you walk, but you're walking in dangerous animal territory, and
True
yeah,
enough.
people are nervous, and it's a brisk walk. You have
Mm.
to whisper, and you have to be careful where you walk, and your
Yeah.
eyes and ears are open all the time for snakes and little critters. And then if you find an interesting little find, like a spidey hole or a um, Mapani tree where the leaf looks like a butterfly, and that's what Mapani means, butterfly.
Mm.
Then basically you stop and you take a little break, and you get explained all about the back end of that side of the
Yeah.
of the bushveld. So it's a really entirely different experience, and definitely completes the circle of the full bush experience.
Mm. Or you can just sit on the deck and watch the waterhole.
Absolutely, you can do that, and the big game comes to you, or all the other game comes to you. Monkeys and nyala and kudu and elephants sometimes. Amazing things come to the waterhole.
They
Sometimes even
do.
lion.
They do indeed. And in fact, just thinking about bushwalks, I've walked with one of your ex-staff members, young Matthew,
Yes.
and a bush legend that is Bruce Lawson, who's now in Australia.
Yes.
And both of them said the same thing to me. If you learn no other bush call, no other bird call, learn the call of the yellow-billed oxpecker, because that might well save your life one day. And it happened at a different
Indeed.
camp. We walked into rhino, but we heard the birds first. And we just sat and waited
Yes.
till the rhino walked by. And then we
Amazing.
continued the walk.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
such good advice. I love that.
It is indeed. Now, if you don't want to sit at the deck and if you don't want to go on a walk, you can always just chill in your room. I know that this particular room, as we speak, is probably being retrofitted and remodeled and all that type of stuff, but I love this.
What?
You did say to me that this is one of the original rooms on the property.
Yes, that room where you slept, which is the photograph we're looking at right now, is room number 4. It's known as the Impala room. That was, in fact, where Marco and Mari, the owners of Umlani and founders,
Mhm.
actually used to have their little housey.
Ah,
So there was a bed in there was a table for the office and reservations, and yeah, that's pretty much where it all started for them. So it was one of the original huts, although it was a management stroke owner's hut. It
mhm.
then soon became a guest hut because when Marco and Mari started having kids, obviously, they
Yeah,
needed more space and bricks and water and all that. So
yeah.
this then became a guest hut. So
It's
yeah, that's one of the originals from 34 years ago.
And it's really nice. And talking about originals, I love this guest book, which is the reason I took the photograph, because
Yes,
it literally speaks volumes to the amount of people
yes,
who have been through your camp in the decades that the camp has been
absolutely.
going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic book. It's quite full now, so there's not many open pages, but there are still a few open pages. And in some of the pages, you can find like repeat guests, like two,
Mhm.
three, four times
It's
in on the
wonderful.
pages, with different sets of dates. And there's even some celebrity people in there, and
Ah.
lots of kiddies and lots of people who have now even come to work here and all kinds of lovely things. So it is a wealth of its own, that beautiful book. It was made for us by one of the guests who gifted it to us for our either our 20th or maybe 25th birthday. I'm not sure exactly. I
Uh,
can't
th
remember. So yeah, it was a gift, and it's still going strong and it's beautiful.
And this is where that book sits, which is a lounge
Yes.
just off the main deck. And there is also a bar in here. But this is a wonderful space. And I should imagine come winter, sitting around a fire here would be very special.
Absolutely. It's divine. And then also on rainy days where it's quite chilly, or possibly nights where the wind is pumping and it's not very practical to be in the open sort of area where the
Mhm.
normal evening dining room is, then we can, and if there's not too many guests, we can set up tables there in
Mhm.
the bar area, and that's a lovely, lovely, cozy space. And with the ambient fire going and the temperatures kept a bit warmer. No, it's just a most divine space to have dinner or chill, with your feet
Mhm.
next to the fire or whatever it is.
I like the way your camp is laid out because it engenders chat between your guests. And I think this is what separates a hotel holiday from a bush holiday. In a hotel, you
Mm,
go to your room or you go to dinner, you're allocated a table, you sit, you eat, you go out on your daily excursions, you come back, and it's rinse and repeat basically. At a bush camp,
yeah,
you all have similar experiences because you go out in the same area, you come back. In your
quite.
instance, you sit at, everybody sits at a big table or two tables, given how many people, and there's interaction between the guests, and you
Yes.
learn about other people, that Republicans are
Mm.
people too, and that type of thing. So, given all of those things, it's just a wonderful space. And I have a habit of asking people within 30 seconds of meeting them, what do you do? And some of the
Mm,
answers flatten you because
mm.
there was a young lady when I was there. I thought she was in media when I heard her speak. Turns out she trains dog walkers, which was so interesting. I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, in
Yeah, it's
Switzerland.
amazing. And I must
Yeah.
say, we're very fortunate. Sorry if I'm interrupting you.
No, not
We're
at
very
all.
fortunate to have a sector of the market which is very let's call it niche,
Mm,
because the lodge industry, especially in the private reserves, tends to be exorbitantly priced,
yeah.
and that kind of cuts out the middle class, if you want to
Mm,
call it that, for want of a better word. So only the super rich or the very well off, at least
mm,
in pounds and euros and whatever dollars, they can afford those very fancy lodges, which caters for a different sector, and there's a place for everybody in this market.
yeah.
But basically, what we love is that we can cater for the more, we're a far more affordable price range, and that's what brings such interesting people around the same table. You get surgeons and accountants and politicians, but then you also get um, plumbers and
Yeah.
they get married too. They also want to be on honeymoon. And they also want a bush holiday. They also have a dream to be in Africa at some point. So
Fair enough.
you get a very different sort of sector of the
Yeah.
market, the traveling or tourism
Yeah.
market with us. And I love that there's a lot of very ordinary, wonderful middle class people that I can really relate to, and that relate to each other. So
Mm,
it's a very nice setting for the socializing of different cultures, different countries, and to be around the table, put aside their professions, and just be in common with each other,
yeah. I
needing
hear
the,
exactly what you're saying. The one
yeah,
thing I have found, Michaela, is that
yeah.
invariably, and I'll take my wife out of the mix. Invariably, there is at least one doctor on a vehicle.
Yes.
Doctors,
For
dentists,
some or other
and
reason, that does tend to
and
happen.
vets. They tend to travel a lot, and it's wonderful. And the reason I took my wife out of the mix is because she is a doctor, and that sort of skews the
Yes.
demographic slightly. This is the entrance to the lodge, which is really nice. I love driving into a lodge where you literally cannot see it until the very last minute.
And that's a very dry representation, which is
Yeah.
what it has been up until the rain came. But yes,
Mm.
that is, and you should see in aloe season, which should be coming up shortly.
Yeah, when
That's
that's all
just going to
bright
be
orange.
orange.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
lovely, the
it's
colors.
magnificent. Yeah.
We're back to the lounge again, but this is a slightly different this is the other side of the lounge, slightly closer to the
Yes.
deck, but again with a fireplace in the background, standing at the
Mm,
bar and looking inwards. Is this one of the newer accommodations?
correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's called an eco hut.
Hmm.
The specialized idea behind this building is that it's thermo storage is really good. So
Ah.
the temperatures are much cooler in the summer
Hmm.
and much warmer in the winter. It makes up to 7 to 10 degrees difference
Wow.
Celsius.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, we've tested it in the winter,
Hmm.
the reed huts, the original reed huts, compared to the eco hut, and yeah, it was up to 10 degrees warmer inside. Um, and in the summer, it's like at least 7 degrees
Cooler.
cooler inside the hut. I think at some point that does equalize to probably about 2 or 3 degrees, but 2 or 3 degrees when you're on 45 degrees makes a
It's a
huge
big
difference. And
deal.
and the other thing is that it's all about technique. So in the
Okay.
morning when it's cool, the cool air, you open up the windows wide and the cool
Mm,
air flows in. And then as it starts to heat up and you can feel that window getting hot, then you
mm.
close the windows, not like tightly,
Yeah.
but you close them and it holds the cool air inside. The hot air gets sucked up into the little twirly thing at the top of the thatch
Okay.
and pulls out all the hot air, and it goes out back into the environment. And
Wow.
only the cool air stays behind. So
Stays
it's a very
inside.
nice eco-friendly, we call it an eco hut, and it's really working for us. It's also been time to upgrade and give some TLC to the old. I don't want to call them dilapidated, but they're very weather worn. The
Fair
huts
enough.
were weather worn. We
Uh,
are 35 years old.
I was going to say they're
Even
elderly.
humans, yes, they're elderly folk, they're maturing. And we're not going to put them to their grave, but we
Yeah.
certainly do need to butter them up a little, get some blush and rouge going,
Yeah.
and yeah, they
Do some
needed a bit of
makeup.
TLC, and electrics needed to be upgraded, and the demands have also changed in the industry, and we're not going to go 5-star like our neighbors,
Mm.
and we're still going to be in the lower price class, but we certainly needed to just to give it a little bit of an upgrade. So that's what we've
Talking
done.
about electricity, Michaela, your camp is solely dependent on solar? Because I didn't know
Yes.
there was no issue as far as charging stuff, charging devices, running my laptop. There is Wi-Fi in the camp. I found it all over, which is good, bad, or indifferent, depending on why you want Wi-Fi. Sitting next to the pool, mindlessly scrolling through
Yes.
Facebook. I've never quite understood that.
No, me neither. But I don't think that's the idea. But the big thing is, yeah, the solar. We are an eco green. You know, the
Mm.
whole idea is sustainability and not to impact too much on the environment. So we are completely, always have been completely off grid. So solar power for any form of electricity, and we use borehole water, which means we don't get from the mainstream either.
Right.
And it's not chlorinated or anything. We just get normal underground river water, which is safe to drink, and it's very pleasant and soft and easy on the skin. And yeah, so we basically off grid, and it works for us. You don't need to be in the bush and have high tech,
No.
fast speed internet, and you certainly don't need to have bright lights and whatever. So the lighting is gentle, and where in the general areas we stick with the original ethos of just doing paraffin
Mm.
lanterns and candles and stuff like that. So it's very ambient. It's a very lovely space,
And I
I
didn't
think.
realize this is how you warmed up the water for coffee in the morning. But I loved this image
Yes.
of
Isn't it
who needs
glorious?
a stove to heat up water when you can
Nah.
just put kettle jugs next to a fire and let nature take its course.
Well, I can tell you right now, it tastes better this way. And I'm not being biased. It's an actual fact. We've put the same coffee with the same water
Hmm.
on a normal, in other regions, like
Yeah.
in Hoedspruit in the town,
Hmm.
you put it on, and it just doesn't taste the
Doesn't
same. I
taste the
think that
same.
smoky wood and
Yeah.
that whole it's the same as wine. When you're drinking it by the fireplace with lions in the background, you definitely
Tastes
taste
different.
that pinotage
Yeah.
much better than usual. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful way to do it,
Hmm.
and people love it. It's
Yeah.
quite fun. We enjoy
It,
it too.
it's also like when you brine, people brine gas. No, you can't brine gas, people. It has to be on wood or coal. Meat tastes very different.
Yes,
And talking
it
about
really
tastes different,
does.
yeah. Some eagles. And this
Yes.
image is not photoshopped. These two were sitting there, sort of checking out their territory, maybe having a look
Isn't
for a
it?
meal.
That's amazing. I can't. I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember which eagle this is. Is
These are
it the?
tawnies.
It's not the tawny. Is it the
Yeah,
tawny? I was going to
they're
say, is it
tawnies.
tawny?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We
I
saw lots
imagine
of
this was
tawnies
probably close.
and lots
Yeah.
of Wahlbergs, which seem
Yes.
to abound at this time of the year. Tawnies will eat things that have a face, whereas Wahlbergs, and I didn't know this until I watched them one evening, love termites. And they will sit at a termite mound and wait for termites to fly out, and then genocide happens.
Mm, I'm telling you. But yeah, I think this is probably the pair that hangs out at Marco's Dam. They've got a nest nearby. I don't know if it
Uh,
was then, but yeah, the raptors are back and we're very happy for them. So
Now, for me, this makes the whole trip well worthwhile. This was a mom and her cub, and her cub is just
beautiful.
out of shot in this image.
Mm,
I love it when you're listening to radio chatter, and you hear Ingwe. And for those on the vehicle who know what it is, I just keep my mouth shut because I don't want to, to inform other guests and then that when you get there, the leopard is gone. But she was relatively relaxed out in the open, and we were able to spend some time with both of them before they vanished
beautiful.
into bush. And then you leave it for other
Mm,
vehicles to enjoy the sighting.
mm.
Um,
Oh,
yeah, sometimes you see vultures. It was such a nice day, even the vultures were walking. Because without the vultures, without the cleanup crew, and it's vultures and hyenas and jackals, the veld would be littered with carcasses.
mm.
These guys fly in,
Yes,
they
and quite smelly too.
yeah, and very smelly. Your guests would not want to stick around.
Mm,
But
mm,
here's one of these instances. I've never seen it, Michaela, where it was
mm.
a huge lion pride. I think we counted 19 individuals. And they'd
Yes.
killed three buffalo and an Inyala bull and went through it.
Isn't it crazy? They've got a lot of mouths to feed.
Well, this is it, and you don't realize we got there just after they'd killed this particular buffalo, which was a female and a calf. And there was still a lot of meat on it. And our guide said to us, if we come back here tomorrow morning, there's going to be nothing. And I thought, they
Mm.
can't finish a whole buffalo literally overnight. And boy, did they. But
Yes.
people go to the bush, you sit at a kill if you're lucky enough, and they go, ooh, oh, it's so brutal and it's so cruel and all of that. But these guys can't go into the local supermarket and go, could I have a barbecued chicken and a packet of chips? It doesn't work like that. They have to earn their
No.
meal every day. And this is just part of the
And
cycle
work very
in the
hard to
bush.
catch it. Yeah.
Indeed they do.
They sometimes stalk for days before they strike.
And what people don't realize, thanks to people like David Attenborough and sundry other documentary makers, is lions don't score every time they chase down an animal. They're, in fact, one
No.
of the worst. I think their kill rate is sort of 2 out of 10, which means that, as you say, they're working incredibly hard to get fed while the
Yeah.
guests watch, then come back to the lodge and there's breakfast waiting or dinner waiting, and we're just fed. Don't have to fight anybody for anything. I was hoping that this particular Ellie was going to stand on its hind legs to reach that green,
Oh,
but it didn't. You find that at
it's
Mana,
not high enough. It's
not
not high
quite
enough.
high enough. Yeah. He pulled it down. People don't realize if Ellies want something, they will eventually just, bump the entire tree to the ground to get one leaf and then they walk on with a smile on their
They
face.
make it happen,
You
no
better
matter
believe.
what.
Yeah. And your Ellie seemed to be very relaxed. We were able to sit quietly in the vehicle with them walking relatively close by, but with no threat at all.
Yes. Look, they're very habituated. I think the fact that we don't do commercial hunting and there's no
Mhm.
we're a non-hunting reserve. That's why our conservation levies are very high,
Mhm.
so that we can compensate for the money that would have been brought in by hunting. And also it means that the elephants and the lions and all the creatures just feel very safe around us. They
Safe.
get to
Yeah.
know that we're not a threat. And secondly, you know, the fact that there's so many of us. I mean, they really, in the earlier years when we were kids and we used to come, oh my word, every elephant was charging you at some point and throwing branches at you, or mock charging. Let's call it
Mhm.
mock charging. And yeah, there was so much more action in terms of when you did come across them, they were very grumpy with you. But there's a lot of activity now. Many, many lodges and lots of vehicles driving around, and the animals are habituated. They've gotten to know us as gentle, un uh,
Intrusive.
hostile, non.
Yeah.
I don't know what to use the word. I'm a bit stuck for words today, but basically, I would say that yeah, they're habituated. They know we're not a threat, and they're pretty happy for us to let them do their thing. I always say
Mm.
we have an arrangement with them. We don't bother them, and they don't bother us.
Fair enough. This terrapin was the most interesting encounter I've ever had because it came out of the
Isn't it?
water and it climbed virtually into my lens cap. It was the weirdest thing I've never seen. I was just sitting quietly on the side of this dam and it literally motored
Yes.
across to come and greet me. And then it sort of had a look at
They
my
do
camera
the same with the
and turned around and
lions,
went away.
and it freaks the lions out completely. It's so funny.
This was another interesting sighting. I spent some time in your treehouse, and I encourage people to go, even if you don't sleep overnight in the treehouse. Just sit there. This is a spotted bush snake that had just eaten a frog. And it was wonderful to watch. And I just sat quietly because often if you disturb a snake while it's eating, it will regurgitate its food, which means it's lost a meal. And I didn't want it to happen in this particular instance. And once it had eaten, checked me out, it vanished to go and do what snakes do, which is slither around and look for something else to eat.
Yeah, he's a very friendly guy.
Yeah. And he's
Um,
not a boom
in
slug,
the
so you don't have to
treehouse,
worry.
yes, and he's been around in that treehouse. Well, not him specifically, but they
Mm.
often are there. And we remove them, and then they come back, and then we
Yeah,
remove them, and then they come back.
this to me,
So it's a tree
yeah,
where
exactly.
they like to be.
Yeah. And
Mm.
this to me was an interesting interaction. This was 22 dogs, wild dogs, at
Yeah.
your waterhole. These zebra came
Yes.
down. The dogs sort of ran around them, realized that the zebra were too big. They weren't going to make a
Yeah.
decent catch out of them.
Yeah.
And everybody got to drink, everybody got to settle down. There was a bit of nickering from the zebra. But there was no, let's see from the
Yeah.
dogs if we can bring them down.
Yeah. And plus, in any case, I think they'd eaten that day or
Yeah.
the night before because they did have red faces from the blood. So
Well, how was that for a segue, Michaela? From
uh,
wild dog
awesome. It was
food.
very well,
It
or let's
was,
say juxtapositioned. Well
yeah.
done.
Your food was so delicious. I was saying to you before we started our conversation that I forgot to take photographs of the food. This is the only picture of food that I have, which was a lunch. These wraps were so delicious that I went back.
Uh,
I'd gone back to take some pictures of the dogs, and there were still wraps left. So trust me, I had seconds because I don't think the other people knew that there was food, but that was their problem and not mine. You do 3 meals a day. You do
mm,
breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Lunch is
yes,
normally a light lunch like this. It was a chicken wrap, which was
correct.
absolutely delicious with a really, really fresh salad. What more can
Mm.
somebody want? And then, of
And we
course,
try
this
and
is
keep it
why,
simple
yeah,
by having a light lunch because at late, 2 o'clock,
yeah,
which is late, because we have a late big breakfast and then a big hearty meal also quite
yeah,
early in the evening. So we keep the lunches as light as possible just to
yeah.
tide you over.
And then, of course, this is what I go to the bush for because sunrise and sunsets are just spectacular, and specifically in your area. And talking about dinners, and we're going to end on this slide. Your table decoration for dinner, given the setting and given where you are, is truly spectacular. It really and truly,
Oh,
and well done to all the staff. This could be anywhere. This could be a five-star lodge. This could be an urban hotel. Taken out of context, nobody would know where this was. And well done to everybody.
Thank you. Well, it's very, very sweet. The ladies take great pride in their
Yeah.
artistic ability with the serviette settings,
Yeah.
and sometimes there's a little bit of competition between the ladies. One
Okay.
thing I can say is that Susan, who I'm sure was here when you were here,
Mm.
she we did a quick little spontaneous videoing of that. In fact, the slide that you just showed with the
Mm.
it's almost like a lotus flower or
Yes.
protea or whatever you want. um, she showed us on video how to do
How
that.
to do it. I know
And we
some of
had
the
more
guests
than
were,
5 million hits. 5
you're
million
kidding.
hits. 5
Wow.
million.
Because I know the guests,
Because
some of
it's
the
not,
guests tried to replicate it and couldn't.
no,
And you actually don't want
they
to
forget
use
very
it.
easily.
Michaela, we're running out of time. This is always an issue.
Okay.
On the, no, you don't have to stress, but I just want to give you the time before we wrap up to tell people how to
Yes.
find you, how to book, and more importantly, very quickly, when's the best time to come?
Okay. So basically, all year is pretty good to come. I
Hmm.
would highly, just on a personal kind of level, advise you to avoid rainy season,
Okay.
simply because it gets extremely hot and the moisture builds up, so it gets very muggy and kind of humid, and
Mm.
then the rain comes, and the camp is not um, extremely comfortable in the rain. It's fine. I mean, you can stay out of the rain
Mm.
and it's all that, but it's for 9/10 of the year we have such good weather. So the camp is really designed for an outdoorsy, hot
Okay.
environment. So
Yeah.
I think the rainy season would be something to avoid if possible. Um, but you'll be surprised how many people come during rainy season because that's over Christmas and New
Yeah,
Year, and that's when holidays are. And they love
exactly.
it, and it's all fine. They just got to take out their their
Umbrellas.
big guns and deal with it, you know.
Yeah. And how to
And
book.
then and say again, how to book? Yes.
Mm.
Well, the best way, we do have a website where you can book for yourself online.
Mm.
It's www.umlani.com. And then also you can email Jess, who runs our reservations. She's on info@umlani.com. So
Great
either
stuff.
or.
Okay. That's
Yes.
it's, thank you so very much. Thank you for taking time. I know that mornings in the camp can be very busy for you. I've been chatting to Michaela,
Well,
who's
thanks for
the
taking me out of my duties for a half an hour. That was fun.
I've been chatting to Michaela, who is the manager of Umlani Bushcamp. This has been In Conversation with, I'm David Batsoff, and until the next time, thanks for joining.